I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, we're going to call this one "The Cavalry is not on the way," at least when it comes to affordable housing. I've touched on this many times over the last 10 years on my blog here, but let's give you another update here. You know, in the news here, and I've brushed on this a few times before, I see that our finance minister now, or it's not the or Ministry of Housing or Attorney General, David Eby. These guys move around so much, I can't keep track of them. And you guys know I don't pay much attention to politics anyways. They're all completely inept, and I'm too busy, you know, running my business and getting ahead. But, you know, I see that Mr. Eby here, you know, he's done a complete 180 here the last few months. He's pounding the table now on we need to build more housing in this province and in this city. And he's going to start putting pressure on the municipalities to greenlight more development. Well, where was this 2.5, 3 years ago? Go back and watch my blogs on that, where he said that supply wasn't the problem. It was we need to curb the demand side. There's too much speculation, too much money laundering. Let's tax everything to death. So they've thrown everything but the kitchen sink at this market to curb the demand side. And then, of course, the federal government helped out a lot as well with the stress test and everything else that they throw at you here. The banks, it's always been very difficult to qualify for a mortgage. It's tough to buy a house in Canada. I have friends down in the States that wonder how anyone can buy a house here with our current banking situation and the stress test and everything else. But now, you know, he's completely flipped the table. Hey, it wasn't the taxes weren't the answer. Although you notice they're not removing any of the taxes. They've taxed everything they can now. There's nothing left. So now let's move over to the supply side. So he's pounding the table about getting more homes built, but let's just take a look at that. There's been a couple of articles in some of the newspapers here. I read an article in Business in Vancouver. I've also, you know, one of the guys I tell people to pay attention to is Bob Rennie Associates. If anyone's going to listen to someone, in my opinion, about what's going on in Vancouver real estate, he's the best. Here's a guy that runs Rennie Marketing. He works with all the developers. He's pre-marketing all the pre-sales. He's privy to tens of thousands of deals. He has an agency that sells tangible product. He has his own in-house economists, high quality economists that put out a monthly newsletter on where they see the market going. They talk about development, things like absorption rate, which I'm going to talk about here. But it's funny how I never hear any of this stuff in the mainstream media. They don't like to talk about any of this stuff because I think it's a bit of it's too much of a slap in the face with truth. And that's the problem we have here. People don't want to own up to the truth and what our current market is like and where it's headed right now. The cavalry, as I've been saying for many years, is not on the way as far as affordable housing. Mr. Eby wants to build more affordable housing. Well, what is affordable housing? In Vancouver, I can tell you, and I've blogged about this many times, any new development coming down the pipe in Vancouver, East Side, West Side, Mount Pleasant, downtown, Fairview, Cambie, is going to be luxury condos and townhomes only. Luxury. If it's in Cole Harbour, it's going to be starting at $1,800 to $2,000 a square foot and up to well over $3,000 a square foot. Yaletown, even in Olympic Village, Mount Pleasant area, anything that's coming online there is going to be probably at $1,500, $1,600 a square foot and up. That is hardly affordable for most people. But that's the only way it can go from here, because for a number of reasons. A, the cost to secure what little buildable land is still available is extremely expensive. These developers are paying $40, $50, $60 million for a small lot. You know, the cost of construction has skyrocketed. The labor shortages we've got, the insurance, the materials, all that stuff has skyrocketed. Then, of course, you've got the long delays to get things approved by the cities, whether that's Vancouver or Richmond or Burnaby. And then you've got to run it through the NIMBYs and all that other stuff. Everybody talks a big talk, including our mayor here in Vancouver, that they're going to start greenlighting stuff, but maybe they will speed up the process a little bit. But the bottom line is that it's still going to be luxury condos only coming down the pipe here at $15, $16, $18, $2,000 a square foot. We're not going to see $600, $700 a square foot condos. It's just not going to happen. That ship sailed about 10 years ago. The other thing I want to tell you guys about too, another dirty little secret here that you don't hear much about in the media. if you walk around the downtown west side here, so maybe go down to Thurlow and Harwood, Thurlow and Burnaby Street, Thurlow and Barclay Street. Right along that corridor, there's probably 8 or 9 high-rise condos that have been approved. They've got the development boards up, if they haven't been vandalized, because they've been up for so long. Some of them have been up for over 5 years, approved with the renderings of the building. They've been vandalized, taken down, but there's probably 6 or 7 just on that Thurlow corridor. If you go down to Alberni Street, walk down Alberni, you'll probably see another 7 or 8 development boards up. So these projects were all approved many, many years ago. In some cases, they're old rental buildings that are sitting on those lots. Some of the ones on Thurlow have been emptied out years ago, but nothing has happened. And people will say, well, what's going on? It's a 35, 40-story tower. You've got the rendering on the board, but nothing's happened for 5 years. There's a number of reasons. COVID has hit. That put the damper on all development for a couple of years. But according to Business in Vancouver, with all the uncertainty, with the supply chain problems, the labor shortages, inflation running crazy, the nut jobs we've got at Vancouver City Hall, not a very business-friendly provincial government, and not a very business-friendly federal government, these developers right now, to put forward these projects, even though they're all going to be luxury condos, they apparently can't put together a pro forma. And that is, okay, we bought the land at this price. What do we need to pre-sell these units for to make some money on it? After all, they got to make some profit on this. They're having a hard time figuring it out because there's just so many moving parts here right now with all the uncertainty with COVID and inflation and the economy and interest rates. They can't put together a pro forma, so we don't know what to do. Just leave it. We don't even want to get into selling it. Then another thing that you never hear talked too much about is something called an absorption rate. All these developers know each other. They all know that Bose has got this one over here, Concert has this development lot over here, Ani's got this one over here. They all kind of work in conjunction a little bit. The market can only absorb so many $2, $3, $4 million condos, and that's what these are going to be priced at. Just to give you an idea, 5 years ago, I would have said you'd be nuts if I was selling $1 million, $1.1, $1.2 million one-bedroom condos. I'm selling these all the time. I've got a one-bedroom condo I'm getting ready to list for $1.3 million here. So these are pretty common. In all of these buildings, none of them have been pre-sold yet, you're looking at $1 million plus for a small one-bedroom with parking. You're looking at $2.5 million for a 950 square foot two-bed. Plus GST on that, and it's when they do finally pre-sell them, it'll be 4 years before you're going to get keys on it. So there's just not that many multi-millionaires, because that's who are buying these units. If you're buying a $2.5 million small two-bed, you're a multi-millionaire. There's only so many of those guys to go around. So here we've got probably 20 of these luxury buildings that have been approved years ago. They've got the development boards up. You can go walk by the sites, but nothing's happening because A, they can't get a proper pro forma put together. They don't trust the government. The inflation's running hot. They can't get any labor. Materials are running wild and can't even get the materials. So everything's been on standby or is on hold right now. And even when it does get going, you're going to start to see these projects moving very slowly. They'll put one out every 6-7 months. Wait till it gets sold wait till it gets absorbed before you'll see these other ones coming. So it really is a pipe dream. As far as Vancouver goes, you could put Richmond and Burnaby into that category as well. For any affordable housing, the Calvary on the way, it's not. Anything being built is going to be ultra luxury, and it's why I've often said on my blog here, I'm still selling high quality one bedroom units with parking, concrete, let's call it 12, 13, 15 years old, for $1,150 a square foot. Quality one beds, $1,200 a square foot. They've been creeping up. The one bedroom, high quality one bedrooms now, they've gone up a fair bit. It's still a strong seller's market. I'm starting to get about $1,300 a month now, or $1,300 a square foot now for some of my really good 10-year-old condos now that are in the prime stratas, prime locations. But still, $1,200 a square foot is far below what's going to be built from this point forward. It's going to be almost half in some cases. So that's about as good as it's going to get, folks. If you're looking to buy in a condo, and what's considered affordable now is probably going to be about $1,200 a square foot. Anything coming on down the line is going to be well above that, and it is going to be a slow trickle-in effect. And you could put Burnaby into this to a lesser extent, Richmond. You know, these aren't going to be affordable units. It's a pipe dream. The politicians are speaking with forked tongue like they always do. Now, maybe, you know, in further parts of the interior, in the BC northern region, I don't know, the Kootenays, maybe on Vancouver Island. Of course, the further out you go, we could see what we might classify, at least in Vancouver, you'd classify as affordable housing. Maybe newer units at $700, $750, $800 a square foot. But I hear stories, people telling me about in Kelowna and things, Kamloops, they're up at $1,000 a square foot. Hardly what would anyone would consider really affordable for the average working class guy. But it's often said here, it can be done, but Vancouver, listen, the ship has sailed a long time ago here. Vancouver is not for everyone, and I know it hurts. There's a lot of people that have been born and raised here and feel like they've been priced out of their own city. I get it. But there's 50, 60 cities like that in the world that I could name off here. It's the way it is. Money can travel wherever it wants, these desirable cities. People are retiring and coming out here from all parts of the world, retiring from other parts of Canada. This is where they want to live along the West Coast here, all along the West Coast, from here down to San Diego. And that's not going to change. Yes, there will be dips along the way. Maybe we're getting ready to get into one now. We are if you're looking for a luxury condo. I think moving forward, if you want a $4 million Yaletown or a $4 million Coral Harbor, I can probably get you a pretty good deal on that coming up later this summer or the fall, because that market is starting to soften a bit. Perhaps the detached market on the west side is slowing a bit. Good quality one beds though, priced at $1,100, $1,200, $1,250, $1,300 a square foot. If it's a good strata, that's still a very strong seller's market. We're probably getting bidding wars. And I don't see that stopping anytime soon. Maybe it will. We'll have to see what goes on with the interest rates and everything else. But it is a bit of a pipe dream here, building affordable housing that these politicians are talking about. It just can't be done. The cost to secure the land, the labor, the materials, and they've got to pre-market it, pre-sell it, the absorption rate, they're all luxury, so you can only sell so many luxury units at any given time, so they're going to have to, you know, slowly trickle this new supply in. Meanwhile, the population is growing, more people coming into the city. Hey, it's what I've often said, get a piece of downtown Vancouver while the getting is good. Get a small one-bedroom condo or a studio or a two-bedroom that you can still get for $1,100 or $1,200 a square foot. I think in 15, 20 years, it'll probably look like a pretty good buy. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.